Good morning. My name is James Kilgore. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Outreach for First Followers Reentry Program in Champaign. We're presenting this video as part of a series of videos we're going to be producing over the next few months under the subheading, Know Your Rights. We're going to address topics that are of particular relevance to people who have been impacted by the criminal legal system or who have family members who have experienced some of the effects of incarceration. So this first video is going to talk about marijuana laws. I'm sure you're all aware that marijuana is legal in Illinois, but it's not as legal as you might like it to be. Where can you use it? When can you use it? These are some of the questions that people need to be clear on, because you can still end up with criminal charges for marijuana usage. So give me a chance here to share my screen, and we're going to go through some slides on this topic that have been shared with us by the Land of Lincoln Legal Aid, and this will give you at least some of the information that you need to use marijuana legally. So let's talk about using marijuana at home. First of all, to use it anywhere, but even in your own home, you have to be at least 21 years old, and you can't use it around minors, that is, people who are less than 21 years old. You can't use it in public places. You can't go to the park and smoke a joint. You can't stand on the corner and pass a joint around. You can't go for a walk and inhale that weed while you're taking your walk, or look at the sunset from a hilltop while you smoke weed. You cannot use it in public places. That can be a criminal charge. You can't use it at home if your landlord or residents association does not allow it. It can be banned if you live in a situation where a landlord or a property management company controls the rules for living in that place. If you're not a citizen, using weed may affect your immigration status. That doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get a charge, but for example, if you have to drop, as we say, if you have to do a urine test for weed and you come up positive, that might affect your chances of getting a work permit or citizenship. And there are limits to how much you can possess. Actual weed, you can possess up to 30 grams legally. Edibles, you can possess up to 500 grams. If you have more than that, then you're subject to some kind of criminal charges, being charged in the old time, just like dealers were. So be careful about how much weed you actually possess. What about a workplace? An employer cannot discriminate against you if you use weed outside of the workplace during non-working hours. So if you want to do your 8 or 10-hour shift and then go do some edibles, smoke a joint, whatever, after work, it's perfectly legal, and your employer can't penalize you because he found out from someone that you were smoking weed outside of working hours. If you go during your break time, during working hours, and smoke a joint in the bathroom, that could get you into trouble. That could get you into some kind of disciplinary engagement with your employer. So be careful. Employers may adopt a zero tolerance or a drug-free workplace policy. That is, they can say, you can't smoke or do edibles in my shop, in my business, in my company. Just like many companies would say you can't drink alcohol during working hours, people are free as employers, as owners, to adopt a zero tolerance or drug-free workplace policy. So don't smoke a joint on the job, and when your boss calls you up on it, say, well, marijuana is legal in Illinois, you don't have a leg to stand on. And employers can require workers to do drug or alcohol tests as part of their employment policy. So they can make you do a drop, and if they have a zero tolerance, a workplace policy, they might impose some disciplinary action against you if you come up positive. Now, what about in your car? Well, you can have weed in your car, but you can't just have it laying on the front seat. You can't be smoking a joint while you drive. You can only have it in your car if it's sealed and in a place where you cannot easily access it. So you can't have it sitting between your legs as you drive. It's got to be sealed, probably most likely in the trunk or in the rear part of an SUV or a station wagon, but it can't be somewhere where you could have, say, a roll joint and you could reach that while you're driving and smoke it. And you can be charged with a DUI if you are driving while high. And police can use a drug test to determine if you are high. That is, if they pull you over, they can make you do a legal drug test to see if you are violating the law about driving under the influence. And if you are, you can be charged in the same way that you could be charged if you're using alcohol while you drive. So those are the kind of rules for possession. But let's just take a quick look at the business of marijuana, because it's also a big business and we want to know what's happening with this business, because what happens to that money also has an impact on us. In 2022, marijuana sales in Illinois topped $1.5 billion. The state collected about $500 million of that in taxes. That is, they're taxing the sellers. Now, of the tax money, 35% of that goes to the general fund. That is, it goes into the coffers of the state government and they can allocate it wherever they want. 25% goes to what they call R3, that's Recover, Reinvest, and Renew. It goes to grants to communities harmed by disinvestment and the war on drugs. It also goes to organizations like First Followers, for example, although we don't get that R3 money, as they call it, but to organizations like First Followers that help people who are coming home from prison, that help people find jobs, that help people who may have been charged and sentenced under the old drug laws and now are trying to put their life back together and need some assistance to do that. And 20% goes to mental health and substance abuse programs, recognizing that excessive drug use, but also incarceration itself has mental health implications, or maybe something that promotes substance abuse as a way of dealing with the trauma that ensues with incarceration or being in some way engaged with law enforcement. So all of these are ways in which the money that you might use to buy marijuana, the tax money is set aside to try to make up in some way for the history of people being prosecuted and incarcerated for marijuana offenses, which many people feel should have been scrapped a long time ago. But we're one of 11 states that now has marijuana legalized. And the last question I want to just raise here is, of all that money that's getting out there, we would like to know exactly how much of that is going to Black and brown communities who are the most severely impacted by incarceration. If we look at the prison population, for example, in Illinois, we find that it's about 57% Black people, although Black people make up only 15% of the state population. And a lot of those sentences relate to drugs. And so we want to know how much of this money is going to the people that have been most directly impacted, and how many dispensaries are owned by Black and brown populations and are sitting in communities that were negatively impacted by the war on drugs and by all the arrests and incarceration that took place, particularly because of weed over the course of those years when weed was outlawed in Illinois. So that's about all we have to say for today on this topic. We'll be coming back with our next session, which will be on sealing and expunging your charges. You can find out more about Illinois marijuana laws by visiting the page Let's Talk Cannabis at prevention.org. And we want to thank Jerome White and of the Land of Lincoln Legal Aid and his colleagues there for assistance in putting this program together. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.